Hey, everybody. Welcome to Relish This, the Nonprofit Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Stu Swineford. I'm one of the co-founders of Relish Studio. We're a digital marketing agency committed to helping nonprofits thrive. I have a really great episode today with three special guests, Addie, Lynn, and Wesley from the Pre-Health Achievement Association. Their organization pairs underrepresented minorities who are seeking a career in healthcare with mentors who can help guide them through that process. We had a great conversation that spanned everything from formalizing your organization to doing the research that it takes up front to understand where your personas, where your constituents show up and engage with your organization, and everything in between. Really just automating your systems. It was a really, really fun conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And here we go. Welcome to the show, guys. This is the first time we've had four people on the show. I have Addie, Lynn, and Wesley here with me from the Pre-Health Achievement Association. And you guys are really geared up to help underrepresented minority mentorship into pre-health. And so I'm guessing that's people trying to go to med school and other health careers. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being on the show. Tell me a little bit more about the Pre-Health Achievement Association and what you guys do and how you do it.
So we started about a year ago now, from just sort of the idea that mentorship is so important, especially in the healthcare field. Networking is always important, and I think in the healthcare field we kind of forget that. We think of networking as like something that you do with business or other fields, but we really wanted to help people who maybe like never saw themselves as a doctor, a physician assistant, a nurse practitioner, people who don't really get those messages from society that that's where they're meant to be, but that's really where they want to be and where they could be. So we really take it upon ourselves to make it a community-centered approach, and it's sort of like built by med students for their community. So we really try to usher in the next generation of like empathetic, like patient-centered physicians who really just want to help people feel better, and who are just down to earth. Who would just be like the great providers that we would want to take care of us when we're older.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. I actually was a pre-med student, and I got into med school back in the early 90s and decided that it wasn't the direction that I wanted to go. I didn't actually attend med school. I figured out before I was going to go that I wanted to pursue a little bit different path. But I think that having a program, that one can tap into just so that they have the opportunity to know a little bit more about what's expected is just great. And the fact that you guys are helping underrepresented minorities is fantastic because I think that there are just a lot of challenges there that you guys can help with. It's really cool. Are all three of you are in med school? Is that accurate?
I'm a first-year medical student at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. Yeah.
Great.
And I'm a second year. At the same.
Second year? Okay.
And I'm starting PA school next year.
Okay, cool. That's great. I have a couple of friends who are PAs, and it's really neat how the PA system works. It's cool.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of offering people kind of going into a lot of different areas of practice can benefit from your program. So tell me a little bit more about the program itself. How many people are you currently working with? What are your goals in terms of expansion, et cetera?
Yeah, I'll start off and then I'll let Wesley or Lynn take over. So Lynn and I started this about a year ago, and Wesley was one of the first ones to jump on, and he's our director of recruitment. So before we started in the fall of 2020, which is when we took our first cohort, we were preparing for about 7 months before that to take this first cohort, but we partnered with about 70 mentors. So they could be current practitioners, doctors, PAs, dentists, anything under that realm. And then some of them are like companies that have like partnered with us. So they're private practices where, isn't like one specific mentor who's like, yeah, I'll take on a student to talk to regularly, but they're a whole practice that said, like if you want to just send students our way to shadow, especially with COVID and shadowing opportunities being rare, you can go ahead and send PHAA students, and that'll be like an easy way to get students in to make those connections and to make their own connections in that way, especially with, COVID and a lot of places being closed to shadowing. That's something we definitely wanted to provide to underrepresented minorities who are pursuing medicine, because that is, even usually without COVID, such a huge barrier, especially to people who don't have doctors or medical professionals in their immediate family, in their communities, usually that they have personal connections with. So that was another wonderful thing that we found. And yeah, I'll let Lynn or Wesley speak a little more on how we got started.
Yeah, so I can kind of jump off of that. After we found our mentors, which we had a lot of help from Wesley, so that was awesome. We have more than 50 mentors at this point, and they're all just people that were our mentors or mentors of our friends, and just just through all of our connections, we've been able to pool together mentors in medicine, PA, nursing, even veterinary research and pharmacy as well. And then this semester, so starting this fall, was when we finally were able to pair students with mentors. We have less than 10 mentors or mentees right now. So students that are paired with our mentors, we definitely have more mentors than we have mentees. And so we're hoping to expand and get the word out so that we can get more students to know about PHAA and to be paired with mentors.
I think Addie and Lynn kind of covered everything. So maybe that's why we're here as well. So that way maybe we can get some advice from you, Stu, in terms of how we can expand our mentee base. Because I think it's great to have a lot of mentors, because that means that there's a lot of people who are kind of interested in sharing the same goals as we are in terms of promoting underrepresented minorities in the field of medicine. And so hopefully, with time, we'll be able to build our base a little bit more and continue to expand. And, I know that we initially talked about pretty early in terms of wanting to even go beyond Colorado and go into other medical schools, PA schools, dental schools throughout the country. That's just been kind of in the works or in the talks. And I know that Addie put together this Prezi for all of us to hopefully share with some of these other schools. But at this point, we're just trying to do our best to help build what we have here in Colorado.
Gotcha. I totally understand. I think it's really cool. One of the things we see a lot is this cart horse problem, where essentially you need mentors to get mentees, but you need mentees to get mentors. And so it's really cool that you guys have tackled that and kind of hit that head on, and have so many mentors ready and excited to be paired with a mentee. So that's great that you've already tackled that problem. I was going to suggest that might be something we could talk about, but it certainly sounds like you've done a good job there. I do have a couple questions about that. Are your mentors all underrepresented minorities as well, or are you bringing in kind of just people in the industry, whole cloth at this point?
Yeah, that was a huge point when we were starting off. So we were considering, do we want to only recruit mentors who are underrepresented minorities to help students that can also relate to maybe their mentor's path to medicine? And then we talked about it a lot, and we decided that we just wanted to let anyone be a mentor, because we think that this idea of ushering in humble underrepresented minorities who are pursuing medicine probably we didn't want it to be considered just a project or just an issue for current underrepresented minorities in medicine, because it helps having medical providers that match the demographic of their communities that they're serving has been shown through studies to help the health of the community. So I think it's an overall goal, and a goal for everyone in the medical field, to have representation and have diversity in medicine, and to overcome those current barriers that are holding minority students back from being able to pursue medicine. So we decided that our mentors could be anyone who is passionate about this topic. And so our mentors really do represent a wide range of diversity. We have so many diverse mentors.
Oh, that's great. That's really cool to hear. I think obviously having that diversity is important. But certainly, if the minority groups are underrepresented, and then you were forcing yourself to contain that within the current mentor field, that might be a challenge. So it's great that you're seeing buy-in and you're getting people who are just passionate about the program. I think that's fantastic. Are you raising money as well? What are the other kind of stakeholders or constituents that you're trying to bring into the fold here?
Yeah, that was another main question that we had for you besides the recruitment of mentees. We've been really lucky to have like our starting 9 mentees right now from the inaugural class, and we've had rolling applications coming in since then. So we're going to take in a new spring class as well. And we really want to be able to provide some sort of scholarship or financial help in the future. And we want this to be a yearly thing. So one of the bigger questions we had for you was if you have, experience or insight in that aspect, especially since when we're considering how to raise money to provide some sort of scholarship, a lot of the options aren't things that would be guaranteed yearly. So we would love to be able to offer sort of a stable and yearly route to raise money to provide our mentees with help in that aspect as well.
Gotcha. So tell me a little bit more about the scholarships. Is that helping people pay into your program, or are you looking for scholarships to help them with costs of medical school or dental school or whatever the practice they're going into, or both?
Yeah, we would really want to be able to provide a scholarship directly to the mentees to pay for school.
Okay.
So a lot of them most of them are undergraduates, and we have some juniors and seniors in high school as well.
Okay.
But yeah, we would love to be able to provide a scholarship that'll help them cover educational costs for currently in undergrad, or if they're getting ready to apply to medical school. We have some who are currently in the application process to go straight towards their medical or dental or whatever it is, that education.
Right.
It can get pretty expensive, so it would just be nice to offer support in that way.
Yeah, it can get really expensive. That's for sure. Do you guys have a donor base right now, or are you just nothing coming in? Okay, cool. And then in terms of, do you have any corporate sponsors or anything like that you're working on, or that have you talked about at all?
Not really. Yeah, we're all pretty gung-ho in the medical field. I don't think any of us really have experience with that. It would be amazing to sort of get more experience in that realm, but yeah, I don't think any of us have done anything like that before. Right.
Well, I think there's certainly a whole bunch of different paths that you can go down in terms of starting to raise money. Remind me, are you a 501c3 or are you a for-profit entity right now? What's the structure of your organization?
Our goal is to apply to be a 501c3.
Okay. Cool.
But we are definitely not certified yet. We're coming on our 1-year anniversary, so it's hopefully something we will be able to do soon.
Yeah, it really depends on who you talk to in terms of what that process looks like. I believe that, and I'm a little fuzzy on this myself, actually, but I believe that you need to register in every state if you are going to expand the program outside of Colorado. Or not every state, but every state in which you want to try and participate. I believe that there's an application process in each state. One of the guys I just got off a podcast with actually did it himself. You'll hear a lot that you need to, enlist the help of lawyers and all these experts and accountants and all of that stuff. There is a book that he mentioned that I believe is like something as simple as register your 501c3 yourself or something like that. I'll see if I can find that book, or I'll ping him and put it in the show notes. But ultimately, it is something that you can do yourselves, and it doesn't have to be a multi-year type process, at least according to Ford, who I just got off a podcast with. But I'll try and share that information for you if that's the route that you're hoping to take. Certainly, one of the biggest recommendations that we make is to just make sure you're asking, and so go to your stakeholders now and see who would be willing to start kicking in. You can create foundations. You can make it fairly intricate in terms of the structure, but at the end of the day, if you just start with a plan and just start trying to build that plan, and even if I know it's been 30 years since I applied to med school, but I know that when I did that, there was a fee to apply. And even if your scholarship was just helping to offset some of those fees, because most people, do or want to apply to multiple institutions that they might, continue their education. The costs associated there can be overwhelming, particularly for people of a lower economic, advantage. So even if just you were trying to build a scholarship program that was just will help you with up to 5 applications, like that would be an amazing thing to wrap your arms around. And I think thinking big is fantastic, but don't let that get in the way of making progress. One of the things that I write in my journal almost every week is done is better than perfect. And so sometimes just getting started is, that's the best thing that you can do. But I think that setting up the structure internally is important as well. And so just kind of setting goals for yourselves in terms of getting the paperwork done and getting your 501c3 established is going to be pretty important, because raising money before that can get a little bit sticky as well. So I guess the short answer there is to just start the process and try and get things going, and then make sure that you're just asking people and making sure that everyone knows that that's an opportunity that they have to help support your program. Maybe they can't be a mentor, but they could certainly kick in some money. And then looking for corporate sponsors and really trying to tap into that, I think is another. Those are a couple of ideas there in terms of starting to build that scholarship fund.
That's awesome. I'm really interested in you mentioned corporate sponsors, and do you have any tips for how to start reaching out to corporate sponsors?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that you guys are starting to do a lot of the first steps, which is to just create an online presence, create a presence on LinkedIn. Social's probably a good place to be playing, and that legitimizes you as an organization. So if I were to go and try and find you online and not have a website to go to, that would make me as a marketer, first of all, but as a corporate sponsor type person, make me sort of start scratching my head and saying, well, how legitimate are these guys? So, the more that you can do to establish yourself as a legit group is, that's going to be great. That's going to be the great first step. And you're taking a lot of those steps already, which I think is fantastic. The next piece that I would do is always remember to go back to the well. We talk about that a lot in terms of either what's working or what you've done in the past or people that you've already made contact with. So sounds like you have, about between 50 and 70 mentors in your program. I would go to them and just see what opportunities they have as corporate donors or corporate sponsors might be. The idea there is that it does benefit them to become a corporate sponsor. If you have some sort of packages that you can put together that would enable different tiers of corporate sponsorship, that can kind of help as well. And if you come in at the gold tier, you get your your business name on the site, and they can then start to use this kind of mentee program as a potential opportunity for recruitment. So they're building relationships with students who are going to be graduating from the program here at some point, and so those then become great opportunities to bring new physicians into their practice. The bigger practices, a lot of those guys have some money to help fuel this stuff. A lot of organizations actually have, as a component of what they do, a desire to and a need to built into how they run their practice to do these kinds of sponsorships and to get out there in front. And so I think that that providing opportunities to quantify what is going on with your program in terms of how many hours they've donated to your program, particularly if your program is a nonprofit, they can report that in their own yearly reports and things like that. And so those become just little things that as you kind of bake in all of that stuff into your program, it becomes a bonus for the mentors, for the nonprofit partners, as well as, or I'm sorry, for the corporate partners, as well as to the mentees. So just kind of formalizing all that stuff, I think, would be a great thing to do. And once you have some of that formalization, then it makes it easier to go into a corporate scenario and pitch them as a sponsor. So you've established what these scholarships are going to be, why you're raising money, and just thinking about that in that big picture scenario there's a lot of reasons why people would want to sign on.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So, and then, once you land a couple of corporate sponsors, it just then becomes easier to land more. And so, I would think about those personas. So we talk about personas a lot in marketing, and those are basically just kind of fictitious representations of these different user groups. And so you have mentors is a user group, and there may be some groups within that group. So you may have dentists that respond differently than PAs, which respond differently than nursing mentors. But ultimately, that's a user group that you can kind of identify and define. Then you have mentees, and what's the kind of the ideal person to reach out to in a mentee scenario. And then you have donors, and donors can be individual donors. They can be kind of super donors, so individuals that donate a lot more than your typical donor. And then they can be kind of corporate donors or sponsors. And so each of those has a profile by which you can wrap your arms around who these people are and who you're trying to attract. And that way you know where to go to put messaging out for those people, as well as what that message might be, what's going to entice them to action. And so just identifying who those people are, and then putting kind of a persona exercise to each of those is certainly can be pretty valuable. And we have some stuff that I can share with you guys on persona development as well, which I'll kick over after our call today, and help you with that. Just because I think that would be a valuable exercise just to get your arms wrapped around who you're trying to reach.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. What other challenges are you guys up against? It sounds like right now, getting some mentees into the program would be super valuable. Tell me a little bit about that experience. Is there a timeline on it? It sounded like you might be trying to do that recruitment at certain stages during the year, as opposed to maybe just a continuous influx of mentees. Tell me a little bit about the program and how you're structuring it.
Yeah, so right now we are kind of capping, or we have the applications open. We had them open for the fall, and then end of September, we like closed them and we had our mentees and mentors paired. And the applications that we've received since then, we have just been like telling them that they'll have to wait to be paired with a mentor until January. And so it's kind of like a semester basis that we are like interviewing the mentees, and pairing them with mentors. And that's mainly just because Addie and I, like, one, we don't exactly have the time to just like continually interview mentees at this point. But I guess from your standpoint, do you think it would be better to just let people in as they apply? And also to add on to that, we kind of like advertise and like have been trying to do a lot more outreach for people to apply like right now to prepare for January.
Gotcha. Okay. So a couple things there, and certainly I don't know enough about exactly how you're pairing and how that interview process works. My gut tells me that that since you have mentors kind of excited about the program and interested in being a mentor, that getting all 70 of those people or all 50 of those people, whatever that number is, paired up with somebody would be advantageous in that you'll keep that user group engaged, particularly if you do have an influx of people who are looking to be paired. So if you have an influx of mentees, it feels to me like there might be a chance where you would have some mentor attrition if we don't get some pairing going on in that space, if that makes sense. So if I'm all excited to be a mentor and I say, yes, I'm all on board, and then I don't hear anything from you, and then it gets to be the holiday season, and now I'm looking over here at something else that's shiny, and so now my enthusiasm, there's an enthusiasm gap there that could occur. Trying to make sure that you're keeping everybody engaged, I think might be a good thing to do. So it sounds like you have an interview process. Tell me a little bit about that process, because there may be some ways that we can streamline that for you.
Yeah, so we do it so that we can meet the mentor and like kind of know our community base. So it's partly why we take the time to do those interviews, but also because we want to see where the student is in their process of applying to medical school or dental school, et cetera, and see like what like gaps need to be like covered in order for them to be successful, kind of to help determine what mentor would be best for them, because we have student mentors. We have mentors who are like in medical school right now, and we also have mentors who are doctors and providers. And so depending on the student, what they need, where they're at, if they're needing shadowing hours, et cetera, kind of determines like what mentor we would pair them with.
Okay. Is that a pretty standard set of questions that you ask in the interview process? Yeah,
we have like a list of questions that we ask.
Okay. Could you do that in a more automated fashion where you could use Google surveys or something like that, or create a form on your site that allows people to kind of fill that out?
Definitely. I think that would definitely help make the process faster. Like I was saying, we also just want to know our mentors, like mentees, on a personal basis as well. And we want them to like know that we're here, that we're real people.
Okay. Yeah, I completely understand that desire. What I'm wondering is if there might be a way. So one of the things that we do in sales, and this is not exactly sales, but it's sort of akin to sales, is looking for ways to flag candidates in terms of a high importance to a medium to a lower importance. So what typically we recommend for our clients who are looking to do this, and this works in the nonprofit space as well. So, for example, for volunteers, or if you're trying to bring on a donor or a mentor in your guys' capacity, or even a mentee, figuring out what questions would trigger a high alert, like this person where we want to talk to immediately and get paired immediately. And so if you can look at your current questions, there may be some that fall out of that current list of questions that you ask during your interview process that are like very triggery in terms of a flag that says this guy is ready to go and we need to get him or her paired up immediately, versus the way that they answer that question might be, okay, well, this is a high school student who's maybe just kind of, kicking the tires in terms of what I should do for to become a nurse or whatever. So just understanding where they are in that life cycle is going to be super helpful for you guys in terms of who you need to put your attention to for interviews today, versus maybe somebody who you say, well, let's tee this person up for inclusion in the program in the spring semester as opposed to immediately. And so I would say look at the questions that you ask and see how you can sort those questions in a way that gives you some intelligence into whether or not this is a high touch immediate need or a lower touch need. So maybe like what grade are you in are you in a pre-med program, or are you in a high school program? What year are you? All of those things to just get you guys a little bit more insight as to who to focus on.
Yeah. I guess I should add also, we do have an application before the interview process. So the application's on our website. So all the applications that are coming in, they've given us the details about the year in school that they're in, whether they're pre-med or pre-dental, et cetera. So we could definitely triage in that way and sort of see based on their application, whether or not they're like a junior in college who might benefit from a mentor this semester as opposed to next semester. So that's definitely something we could do. And then also another way we like to keep people engaged is we have events, so Zoom panels and Zoom workshops that we've been doing, and it's been about every other month. So we have in addition to the three of us, we have a whole board behind us, which is amazing and provides so much support, but we have 2 directors of events, so they take care of organizing those events. And so, for instance, at the end of our recruitment in September, when we matched all of the current mentees, we sent an email to the mentors, since some of them are students as well and have,
right.
Their schedule semester to semester changes whether or not they can take on a mentee. And we let them know, we don't have a mentor for you this semester, but we might have one for you in January. So just let us know if you would be able to take one in January or not. And so some of the students who, for instance, are second years right now, second year medical students, and getting ready to take their first board exams in about a year from now, they were like, hey, I can't start one in January because then with our year-long process, that wouldn't end until right about when I take my first boards. So that was great. But another thing that we do is with those Zoom panels and workshops, we actually recruit our mentors for that. And so we also let them know, we don't have a mentee for you right now, but if you are able to participate in a Zoom panel or workshop that would apply to your field, for instance, the topics might be things I wish I knew as an applicant. So we might recruit dental students, medical students for that one. But another one might be my path to becoming a physician or surgeon, in which case we would recruit our physicians and surgeons that didn't get matched with a mentee to participate in that way. So that's one thing we've found that's been nice to keep people sort of engaged with us. In addition to, we were talking earlier about social media. So Instagram has been great, and we've gotten a lot of followers, and then we'll see their names pop up as an applicant, or even we've gotten DMs saying hey, I've seen your program. I want to be a mentor. And so that was an unexpected way to, get more engagement. Although we are always looking for more engagement, especially on the mentee end.
Well, I love that. I think that's great, and I love that you're creating that content. I think that those content pieces become really super valuable, not only in creating scalable material. So, there's universal material there that doesn't require, a one-on-one conversation to impart. And so collecting that information and creating an archive of that stuff. Maybe you create a subscription type model for the site for mentees to access this pool of information, get their email addresses, and then keep transitioning them into this mentee, idea. And so that stuff becomes what we would consider kind of, in the content marketing world, we would consider that to be like a lead magnet, where you can then go out to a group of potential mentees that maybe are just trying to get a little bit more information about the program. Maybe they don't know if they want to be a mentee yet, but you provide them with this bulk of information, and then they transition into a mentee status. So just thinking about ways to take that life cycle in terms of awareness to interest to execution, and move people through that pathway, both mentors and mentees, I think is a really great method. So I'm assuming you're recording all of those events and can chop that stuff up into content that you can share on social, create a repository on your site, and allow people to get into the program that way. That's fantastic stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, that's something we definitely want to. We do have that website, I'm sure you've seen, and it's just open to the public, and so are all of these events. And we do want to create a repository that's open to only the mentees. There are certain topics that I think are really valuable that could just be recorded and don't have to be redone every year. So we definitely, that's another thing on our long going to things to do. We do want to create a repository that's exclusively for mentee access.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an important part of your program, and it's one of these things that just can keep growing and become more and more valuable. And at some point, that becomes a really super valuable resource for people. And it also demonstrates to the mentors that you guys are legit and you're creating all of these assets. And I would continue to do that. I think that's a great method to kind of building up that resource. So I don't know. I may have dodged the question a little bit. It sounds like semester-based activity and inclusion in the program is a valuable mechanism, and I like how you're planning to do that and how you're executing on that. What I think I might do is start to try and develop those resources, and so those can be ways to keep mentees engaged and see the value of the program. So in the short term, as you're spinning out, as you're bringing people in and you're collecting information, you're saying, okay, well, our application program is still going. You can apply at any time. Our matching program has ended for the fall semester. We'll be doing more matching here in January. Here are some resources that you guys can tap into in the meantime to just help fuel your journey into the healthcare profession. I think creating that bucket and allowing people to gain access into that, particularly if they are an applicant, you might have different levels of access to that stuff. So you might have a mentee access area, and then have an applicant access area, and then have like an everyone access area. So just thinking about how people move through that life cycle in terms of interest. Here's some materials. Okay, I'm going to apply. As soon as you've applied, you get access to some other stuff, and then as soon as you've actually become a mentee, you get access into this other life stream. And then transitioning those mentees into mentors at some point is going to be the next step. So I love what you guys are doing. I think it's really cool that you're thinking through these things and are creating all of this stuff. How frequently? Yeah, I didn't look at your social before our call today, but how frequently are you guys posting to social, and how frequently are you emailing your your mentors, your mentees, and your applicants?
So we have 2 people working on our social media, and they're doing a really great job hosting every few days. So we do mentor spotlights, mentee spotlights, and event notifications. So most recently we did, I think this morning, a mentor spotlight posting about one of our mentors who won an awesome Global Humanitarian Award this year. So we really shouted him out for that. We've also spotlighted mentees. Like Lynn was mentioning, we have one thing that surprised us was we ended up having one of our first applicants was pre-vet, and we didn't even consider that at first. So we were like scrambling, like we've got to find a veterinary mentor. So we found a veterinary mentor. And so our veterinary mentee, who sort of opened our eyes to expanding even further, we did a spotlight on her, and she talked a little bit about herself. So that's been a great place for us to get engagement and also post about events. So yeah, that's mainly what we use our Instagram for. That's the main thing we post on, and the main thing we get engagement on as well, I'd say.
Okay. Is that aligned with all of those constituents, do you think? Are most people that you would want to reach out to? So, the age bracket that I'm hearing here is probably 15, 16, all the way up to, I'm assuming some of your mentors are practicing physicians. Is that correct? Or are you trying to just keep that within the student population?
Yeah, so I think just how it has naturally evolved, like our main engagement on Instagram has been mentees, and then a couple of like mentors who actually found us through Instagram. But just with and a ton of the mentors who are students, basically most of the mentors who are students actually are following us on Instagram and vice versa. So we have them. Like we mentioned, we have mentors who are dental students, medical students, PA students. So they're all engaged on the Instagram, but we also have, a lot of our mentors who are providers who don't have Instagram or don't go on Instagram. So it's not really the place where we contact them. We would usually get in contact with those mentors through email. So we have our giant bank of mentors and mentees, and like email lists. So yeah, I think email is the main way we get in contact with our practitioner mentors.
Okay. Yeah, so that's one of those things that goes back to what I was talking about with the persona exercises. Part of a persona exercise is really identifying where each of these user groups goes to get information and where they spend some of their free time. So depending upon the demographic of the group that you're trying to reach, we would make recommendations for different social media accounts and different ways to engage on social media, including LinkedIn. So LinkedIn might be a place to try to start reaching out to practices. So finding dental or medical practices where you could tap into a mentor group there. Potentially corporate sponsors. So just thinking about people in the medical world that might be interested in becoming a corporate sponsor. They may have some, like Pfizer or people like that. I know that there's some itchiness in terms of how physicians are able to engage with corporate entities, but my guess is that there may be an opportunity for mentors and mentees in pharmaceuticals as well. I don't know if that's part of your program right now, but it certainly could be. You could even look at pharmacies and go after like King Soopers or Walgreens or people like that in terms of corporate sponsors, because they are going to be looking for pharmacists at some point. So just thinking through all of those ways that people engage and where they go to get information. So typically for an older demographic, Facebook tends to be the place where those guys hang out, guys and gals. Instagram tends to be a little younger demographic, which is great because you can get both mentors and mentees through that, in terms of student zone. And then, looking into, if you're really starting to try and pick up the younger crowds, certainly the more up and coming social media channels tend to be where younger people play. So it might be worth doing a survey of your mentors. Just, having that be an email that you send out, and just do a Google survey or something like that to get insight, and just say, hey, when you go to look for information, or what social media channels do you play in, and just get that information, and then you'll know, at least with the 50 or 70 that you've recruited thus far, you'll know where they go to get information, and so you can then reach out on those channels to try and build that mentor base. So that's kind of how I would approach that play, for sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never even thought about on our LinkedIn, like Matt, connecting with even mentors we already have in place and practices that we're already partnered with. I didn't really think too much about that. Our LinkedIn is a less engaged social media for sure. It's definitely like not as engaged as, say, our Instagram. So I think maybe like trying to actually connect with, even starting with our current mentors, would be a great place for us to start. And that's something we could do like today.
Yeah, I would definitely add that to your list of things. I know your list is really long, but
which is good. We like having action items.
Yeah. But even if you took that list of 50 or 70 and just said, I'm going to reach out to 5 of these people a day, my guess is that the majority of those guys and gals who are at least active on LinkedIn, will be thrilled to connect with you. So, it's not a huge, scary ask. It's a, hey, and that messaging should be something to the effect of, or could be something to the effect of, hey, we really appreciate you being a mentor in our program, and we'd love to connect with you here on LinkedIn. And just copy and paste and go after all of those people and connect with them. I think that'd be a viable thing. And then you can leverage the power of that network to push out your you said you had mentor and mentee profiles or spotlights. Those people would love to see that, and tag them when you push it out. So if let's say I'm a mentor and you just did an interview with me, and you've created this content, push that out and say, hey, here's this great interview we did with Stu, who's a mentor in our program, and do @Stu blah. And so I get tagged in that. A lot of people, they just, it's an ego thing, and they like to see their name in the spotlight. And so just leveraging that stuff and really kind of leaning on it is going to be pretty effective. They'll share those things, and you'll see that user group grow.
That's such a good point. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. And then yeah, just thinking about where these guys all go to get information is really important. What other questions do you guys have? Is there anything pressing that's coming up? And it sounds like you have a pretty good source of mentees. It sounds like you have a backlog of people to interview.
A couple. It's a handful. That's also another question that we have with expanding. I think in general, the Colorado population tends to not be like as diverse as some other areas. And so that was another reason we were thinking like we might have a little less engagement. And talking to some of my older mentors who have been involved in things like this or in pipeline programs, that was something that they've noticed as well. Just the lack of pooling just due to the demographics in Colorado. And so that's something we were thinking about, like if we were to expand to a city that might have more general diversity, if we might see more success in that way. Because we were kind of thinking the opposite when we first got started. We were getting all these mentors together, thinking that would be our short, like where we fell short is like not having enough mentors was our biggest worry. And then we got so many mentors together, and then finally opened up applications, and we were just like the crickets, like radio silence, like got like one application every few days.
Okay. Let's see. I have some ideas there for you. So before I would abandon Colorado, because it's going to be a lot easier for you guys to stay within a state and get processes and get really good traction within the state.
PHAA Colorado's here to stay for good. Hopefully, we definitely want people to take over leadership even when we leave. Once we're maybe graduated and doing residencies in other states, we're really hoping that there will still be leadership here running this organization.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So one of the things that I would do I think, is see if you can come up with an idea around creating content about being, BIPOC in the medical field, in terms of either your own experiences or dig into some of your mentors and look at that group and see if you can get someone to record, a 1 or 2 minute or even 3 minute little interview about entering medical practice or the healthcare field as an underrepresented minority, and then take that material and distribute it in places where kids might be looking for information. So essentially, this becomes a piece of content that is fueling this desire for BIPOC individuals to enter the medical field, right? And so again, the challenge there is could this be distributed to schools in urban and under areas where underrepresented minorities are, and so just getting in front of that audience early and creating a mechanism by which you're so typically high schools in certain communities have a higher representation of minorities than in other areas. So just finding the demographics on that, and I know that information is available, and then just reaching out to those schools. Maybe you can get a mentor to go do a talk at one of these schools. Maybe you guys could go talk at one of these schools. So essentially, schools are looking for programs. I know it's a little weird in 2020 as we're experiencing this pandemic, but schools are always looking for for an influx of programming, right? And they're always struggling to how do I get kids interested in something other than me standing in front of the classroom talking? And as a teacher or as an administrator, they're always looking for that kind of programming. So tapping into that and getting in front of those groups, I think would be a fantastic way to drive the mentee engagement. On social, there are tons of influencers and people like Afro Outdoors and people like that are bringing these groups together. And so I don't know what your strategy is or what your tactics have been on social, but social, one of the things that people kind of forget sometimes is that it's not a one-way kind of activity. Social media is social, and it's creating relationships and building relationships by creating two-way opportunities. And so just making sure that you're active on social and going out there and commenting on posts that people have, even if it's not necessarily exactly aligned with what you're doing, but going and starting to follow some of these accounts of BIPOC influencers or organizations that are helping represent underrepresented minorities, and just starting to get to engage with them and get them to follow you and get them to comment on your stuff and share things and really create that two-way dynamic on social is super important. And it's hard. It takes a little bit of work, but again, don't bite off more than you can chew, but just kind of set a goal for, we're going to go follow one organization that meets our demographic per week, because there are going to be a ton of people that are also following those organizations. And if they start to see you becoming active with them, then they're going to follow you. And it just creates this groundswell.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Thanks. Yeah.
I mean, it's been really great talking with you guys. We're kind of reaching the end of our hour. What takeaways do you have from our conversation today? What kinds of things do you think you might go act on?
Yeah. I really like the point you made about formalizing everything. I think that prioritizing the things that legitimize our program a little more. So something that we've seen a lot of success with is social media. But I think we could see a lot more success with like, for instance, our goal of wanting to provide scholarships has been one big bottleneck. Where we're all sitting here, like, we all learned how about genetics and, gene editing and all those things in undergrad, but we never really learned, like, how to work with corporate sponsors or things like that. So I think what you said about legitimizing through 501c3 applications, and what you said about possibly being able to do it ourselves, which is one really good piece of news to hear. I wrote down the a little note on that book so I could do some Googling later. I think, the whole idea of formalizing and legitimizing our program a little more, especially as we come into, our first year since we started, was one of the biggest takeaways, I think.
Great. How about you, Wesley?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that for me as the director of recruitment, I kind of didn't even think about the long-term longevity of the mentors that we recruit, because I was just kind of stuck in this mindset of, okay, I brought them in, like we're all set. But you made a really good point about keeping them engaged and always making sure that they're always in the back of our minds in terms of making sure that they know that we are thinking of them and making sure that they have mentees, and if not that, then we're gonna ask them to be helpful in other ways. And so my takeaway from this is to constantly try to make sure that they know that we are truly appreciative of them and their time, and that we're going to do everything that we can to find them a mentee, but also let them give their expertise in whatever way that they can, so that they can feel like we're not just reaching out, ask them to sign up, and then nothing happened. So I think that's my big takeaway.
Awesome. Great. Well, I love to end these talks with an action ask. One of the things that drives me nuts is a whole bunch of talking and discussing, and then nothing gets done. But one of the things I want to do is inspire our listeners to go be able to have something to do today. So, and this could be anything. This doesn't have to be related to what your mission is. It could be just anything. But I'd love to ask each of you if you could have the listeners of our show do one thing today or in the next week. What would that thing be?
Yeah, I think I have something. I feel like this has just kind of been in our face especially these past few weeks, but I would say my action item or call to action for your audience would be to go out and vote, especially given the time that we're in right now. And with the election coming up in a few days, I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety and just ideas and thoughts about what's been going on in terms of our political and social climate. And so I think now it's more important than ever to make sure that our voices are heard. And so my call to action would be to go out, vote, and make your voice heard.
Yeah, I really like that one. Okay, I'm going to think of a new one, though. I would say maybe, that one thing that you have in the back of your mind that you always wanted to learn more about. Start with that, whether it's, listening to a podcast on that topic, reading a book, right, watching a YouTube video, whatever it is. Maybe finding, a way to make the world a better place, no matter how cheesy that might sound. I know in quarantine, we're all sort of dealing with the challenges that come with isolation, but maybe just checking in on yourself, asking yourself how you really are, and maybe asking how you can take this time to better yourself, although that sounds really cheesy as well. Maybe turning the challenge of quarantine into an opportunity.
Love it. So this will air after the election, but my organization is really dedicated to getting people out to vote. We're part of the Make Time to Vote movement, and we take the day off on election days every time they happen. Every couple of years there for sure, just to make sure that we're encouraging people to vote. So I think that action is not something that's necessarily just about next week. So I appreciate both of you guys being on the show, and I was really happy to talk with you, and I'm excited to see where you go with your program. And thanks a ton for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
It's my pleasure.
You take care.
Thanks, guys. All right, there you have it. Another episode of Relish This, the Nonprofit Marketing Podcast. If you want to continue the conversation and see how we can unearth some gold for your organization, head over to relishstudio.com/podcast to sign up to be a guest on the show. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another episode of Relish This.